trying to find just the right balance because there's nothing really challenging you. Because you don't have any real problems, and you're not on the earth. You're not standing on the earth anymore. You're in a bubble where you sort of like, maybe I'll try this, and maybe I'll just do protein now, and I'll do, you know what I mean? And you'll never find a balance because that's not a normal life. That's not organic living. That's not living like a human being, you know?
Joe Rogan's podcast seems to have only gotten worse this year, as every time a new episode drops, it becomes increasingly clear that Joe has drifted into wacko territory. No longer is Joe Rogan the relatable stoner that talks about the four-dimensional beings he encountered on DMT. Nowadays, Joe's morphed into this almost grumpy variation of a boomer that no longer talks with his guests, but at them. Usually about the same 4 or 5 political points stuck on a loop. Like, no matter what kind of guest he has on, Joe will inevitably end up talking about either COVID-19, how California has turned into a godforsaken wasteland, how great Austin, Texas is, or he'll just go on a conservative glazing session. And it's gotten so bad now that longtime fans of the show have stopped listening to most episodes. Joe Rogan's peers have also become more comfortable calling him out on public platforms recently, as we just saw veteran comedians like Bill Burr and Mark Maron do on 2 huge podcasts last week.
You know, there's certain podcasts out there that if you're a racist, if you're an anti-Semite, and you want a softball interview, there's podcasts out there where you can, and they will laugh at your fucking bad jokes.
The thing with Joe is I don't know that we have a lot to talk about because of my idea of what he's done to comedy.
Sure.
And I don't think it's great.
But to be fair, Mark Maron has been Joe Rogan's biggest hater since the early 90s. And ever since 2021, we haven't seen Bill Burr on Joe Rogan's podcast. So these guys calling Joe out doesn't really come as a surprise to most people. A better indicator of how far gone Joe truly has become is when his closest friends call him out on his own show, almost as if they're trying to show Joe Rogan the light. Like when Joey Diaz snapped at Joe Rogan for talking about things that truly shouldn't matter to either of them.
Have you seen any of that stuff on Japan? Mm-mm. See if you can find anything on the Japanese population crisis. They're having so few children in Japan that, like, in 3 generations, they could be in real trouble.
That's your question?
Yeah.
What the fuck's it got to do with me? I don't give a fuck about the Japs. What the fuck is wrong with you, Joe?
Well, I think about it with us. Because I think about it with, like, civilizations collapsing. I think about it what we've been talking about the whole day.
Yeah, but we don't have to worry about that.
I know. We don't have to worry about it.
You're
right.
This is the first podcast I'm done that I'm scared. You know what I'm saying? What the is wrong with you?
You're right.
Enough with this shit.
You're right.
And politics, enough.
I know.
COVID is over.
This clip happened around 3 months ago, and if Joe had listened to Joey Diaz's advice, even in the slightest back then, I wouldn't be making this video. So, as you may have guessed, Joe did not listen. And in the past 3 weeks or so, I feel as if he's become the most out-of-touch version of himself to date, and he's now bending reality based on his own personal relationships, like on episode 2352 with James Tallarico, when Joe disagreed with his guest about Nick Fuentes being a Holocaust denier, insisting that denying the Holocaust and debating the numbers of the Holocaust are 2 very different things.
Research on this to learn about it, but there's been a lot of stories about these 2 billionaires and their control over state government. And I say this because...
But a big part of the Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro's very Jewish.
Well, and these 2 billionaires hosted a meeting with Nick Fuentes, who is a Holocaust denier, and
He's
got a lot of
Holocaust
pushback.
Denier?
Nick Fuentes?
He's a denier,
Yes.
or does he debate the numbers?
Well,
Is that
to be fair, I don't listen to a lot of Nick Fuentes, which is on me, but...
who funds it? Duo serves, yep.
Pretty odd thing to push back on, Joe. Especially since Joe doesn't push back in the very slightest when he has people on his podcast who people actually want answers from. Like the sitting president, the vice president, and of course the current director of the FBI, who, if you don't know by now, was sitting 4 feet away from Joe Rogan when Elon Musk publicly accused Trump of being on the Epstein list, to which the FBI director just conveniently skated on over.
Since we were talking about fake news, this is going to come up because it's been going on since we've been recording here. Elon and Trump seem to be in a bit of a spat, Joe. You want to check the tweet that Elon just put out a little bit ago?
Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
I'm not participating in any of that conversation
What
between
is he?
Elon
Have a
and Trump.
nice day, DJT. Someone should take his phone away.
They're going back and forth about different things. And
Yeah.
How does he know? Does he know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Or does he have access to the Epstein files?
I don't know how he would, but I'm just staying out of the Trump Elon thing. That's way outside
What
my
the
lane.
fuck are they doing?
I know my lane, and that ain't it.
I just don't. I mean,
Wow, not a peep from Joseph. But you know, when Nick Fuentes is being accused of being a Holocaust denier, then Joe's gotta step in. And then to make his listeners even more annoyed with that situation, Joe actually talked about this encounter with Kash Patel only a few weeks ago on his podcast with Danny Jones, where he scoffed at the idea of actually pushing back at the FBI guy about Epstein.
you know, you got the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like what? Why'd they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why'd they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
What, are you talking about Epstein or Diddy?
Yeah, Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah, she said it literally, I think, a week before you had the FBI director sitting here telling you there was nothing, right?
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Kash Patel said there's nothing you're looking for. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to push back.
Right. No, of course. I understand.
Obviously,
I understand.
he's saying what he has to say.
Right.
So this is what I'm talking about when I say that longtime listeners have been really fed up with Rogan recently. Joe has 24 million listeners every week, yet refuses to practice any type of good interviewing when he has guests on that people really want answers from. So it's crystal clear that he has a political bias on his show, because he obviously only gives softball interviews to people that he aligns with. But at least Joe Rogan platforms actual politicians and scientists that are professionals in the field that they're talking about. What's even more annoying than Joe not pushing back is when Joe decides to talk politics all by himself, because he doesn't really fact-check anything he has to say, and when he goes on these long political spiels, it's almost like you can feel Jamie on the edge of his seat just itching to turn on his mic, but he doesn't in order to keep his job.
We're in this complete shifting of the polls where the Republicans now are in favor of free speech. The Republicans want to end the wars. They want to stop contributing to foreign countries. They want comedy to be comedy again. They don't want restrictions on people's behavior and thinking.
Yeah.
And the Democrats have developed this sort of like cult-like idea of what everyone should accept and what's normal and what's not normal and what needs to be elevated in our population and what needs to be ignored. And it's just like,
It's kind of insane of Joe to still push the idea that Republicans are anti-war and pro-free speech at this point. Like, come on, Joe. Even if you ignore the massive increases to the military budget, the push to start a war with Iran, and deporting foreign students from speaking out, you'll still find plenty of evidence showing they're pro-war and pro-censorship. A lot of people actually think that Joe was saying this on purpose. Like, people believe that Joe is probably aware of everything that I just listed, but subconsciously ignores it because if he didn't, it could threaten his new life in Austin. He knows what side he's on, but funnily enough, still thinks he's in the center when it comes to politics, which he says about 5 seconds later in this very podcast.
God damn, you're ruining it for everybody that thinks in a left way. Like anybody who's reasonable, like a reasonable left-thinking person, which is most artists, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
And then you get to this point where you're like, no, I can't go along with you on all these things.
Yeah.
You guys you're just a bunch of fucking assholes who are using these subjects as a way where you can behave incredibly shitty, incredibly uncharitable, like vicious, mean, ostracizing people from society. I don't want any part of you. I don't want any part of the way you guys think and behave. And you to pretend that you're doing it for good, you're gluing yourself to the wall for climate change. The fuck you are.
Yeah.
You're just a nut. You're just a crazy, entitled nut, and you're fucking up society.
Yeah.
This is not the way that people should be behaving. And I can't believe it makes people go to the other. And the Republicans are smarter about it now in this day and age. Because they're like, hey, we'll take you in. Hey, it's fine. Come over to us. You could say whatever you want. Comedy's back. You know?
It's a big ebb and flow to me. It's like some weird natural balance of like things shift a little bit to the left, things shift a little bit to the right.
But we got to hold the center.
So yeah, just way too much political jargon from a guy who used to talk about grizzly bears, bow hunting, and the ancient Egyptians' knowledge of the pineal gland. And again, most people wouldn't mind Joe talking politics if he went about it in a level-headed way. But it's almost like he's pandering to one side, like he sold out, if you will. But in my opinion, the political grifting Joe's done recently isn't even his worst offense. Joe's most despicable behavior can actually be observed when legitimate, reputable scientists go on the show and disagree with any of Joe's various conspiracy theories. Like Joe's handling of the Flint Dibble Graham Hancock debate was just atrocious. Because even though Flint provided real evidence to back his claims, since he's an actual archaeologist who's been to the sites that Graham and Joe talk about, Joe and pseudo-archaeologist Graham Hancock just bullied and interrupted their way through the podcast. And after that show, believe it or not, Joe actually made fun of Flint Dibble for having cancer.
The Flint Dibble approach. That guy embodies what you don't like about academia. You see him physically, he embodies it. It's like that's what it is. It's these weak men, these weird, kind of bitchy, weak men.
Hey there, Joe. I just found out yesterday that you ridiculed my appearance in front of millions of people on your podcast. Here I am. I have had, for the last, 6 hours in the hospital to consider this while I get treated for my stage 4 cancer with an infusion. You know that I've been fighting cancer for the last 4 years. You've mentioned it to millions of people on your podcast.
What a little man Joe Rogan truly is. And if you haven't watched the whole expose video Flint Dibble put out about Rogan, I put the link in the description down below, and I highly recommend you guys give that a view, because he tore Rogan to shreds, and it really puts Joe in a light that you may have never seen before.
Joe Rogan, you're a coward who calls a cancer fighter weak.
And mind you, all this stuff about Joe happened in the last 4 or 5 months or so, which is why I think that Joe Rogan is actually at rock bottom right now. Because it's not like any of this is new, you know? But it's become much worse recently. And I'm sure if you're watching this that you may have been a fan of the podcast at one point in time, because the show used to actually be genuinely good. It felt as if Joe felt as if he was lucky to be in the presence of some of his guests, and he would let the guest lead the convo, instead of the other way around. Joe also used to have the best guests on, as when he lived in Los Angeles, there was a plethora of cool people in town that could stop by the studio to talk with Joe while they were doing other promotional stuff for their careers. That simply cannot be found in Austin. And now when you scroll through Joe Rogan's recent podcast episodes, I'd bet that the general listener would have to Google search at least half of the people that Joe's talking to. So Austin's not really skyrocketing. Instead, it's sort of stagnated now. And the comedians in his circle, aka the Rogan sphere, have openly criticized how shitty the city truly is. Like Tim Dillon, Mark Normand, Shane Gillis, and even Ari Shaffir have all come out on separate occasions to publicly trash Austin with seemingly zero remorse.
What is the most overrated city everyone loves to visit? I'm sitting in one of them right now, Austin, Texas. It is trash. It is classless. It's classless trash, everybody. It's not cool. Everyone's like, why don't you move to Austin? The comedy scene's huge here. I'm like, sure. The city itself is not cool. I'm not saying it has a lack of cool. I'm saying it's actively uncool.
Well, let me just say, I went to Austin, and gotta tell you that Austin, I don't know how these people, these Gillises, or these Tyler Fish, or these Seguras, who must be Greek, how do they live there? I mean, it's that city is a boiling pot of evil goo, just circling a dish.
Texas is gayer than LA. I'll say it.
Texas?
Fair. That's fair.
Wait, why?
I'm sure not
A
the
lot
rest
of
of the
guys
state.
showing off.
Austin is a gayer version of.
There is equally as many shirtless guys in Austin.
No,
as there is
I
down.
haven't seen one shirtless guy here.
I hated everyone I met and all of the things that people were doing. I hated, and I didn't understand what was going. Everyone there was like, "This is the next city,"
Right.
And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. The lake is the color of sewage. These are the worst people. Austin is like if the Proud Boys and Antifa got married and had a city. Nothing works. And the food is atrocious. It's some of the worst food in America. You have to be like a drunk college pig to enjoy it. I've shit-talked Austin for 3 years. Not one human being has said, hey, fuck you, man. Not one person has said that. Everyone kind of goes, yeah, I get it.
It just seems to me that Joe Rogan and his once universally loved podcast have, in fact, face-planted into rock bottom recently. But I guess we'll just have to see where things go for the rest of this year, as I heard rumors that the mothership will be expanding to New York City, which would be pretty interesting to see unfold. But with that being said, that is it for the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to push back.
Right. No, of course.
and
I
obviously,